An election like no other. It's set every 4 years, but it's never been more true.
What began as a rematch between 2020's candidates became something very different, offering both generational change and two divergent visions of America and its future. I'm Cyril Vanier.
And I'm Fully Batibo from our global headquarters in Doha. Welcome to Al Jazeera's special coverage of the 2024 U.S. presidential election. We'll follow Kamala Harris as she attempts to make history by becoming the first female president of the United States.
While her Republican rival Donald Trump seeks to reclaim the White House, something no former president has accomplished in more than 130 years.
We'll explore what the next president will mean for both America and America's role in the world.
And I'll be bringing you the latest data and results from around the country, especially from the 7 battleground states where this election is almost certain to be decided.
I'm James Bays in our Washington, D.C. election studio overlooking the White House. I'll be speaking to a series of guests from across the political spectrum and asking them what the results mean for America's place in the years to come and for the US's place in a turbulent world.
We also have correspondents standing by across the country in all those 7 crucial swing states, from Georgia in the east all the way to Nevada in the west. But first, let's check in with both campaigns. Donald Trump is in Florida, where Alan Fisher is standing by. But first, live to Kimberly Halkett, who's at Kamala Harris's election watch party on the campus of Howard University in Washington, D.C. Kimberly.
We're here in Washington, D.C. at Howard University. This is the Vice President Kamala Harris's alma mater, but it is also significant and important to her because this is a historically Black university that is important to her because this is where she also launched her presidential campaign back in 2019 before dropping out. Now, she, of course, did become Joe Biden's running mate, eventually becoming the vice president, making history as the first female to do so. Now she is hoping to become the first female president of the United States. Let's check in now with Alan Fisher and the Trump campaign.
I'm in West Palm Beach in Florida, where Donald Trump will have a watch night party, and his team believes a celebration as he reclaims the White House. Remember, Donald Trump has run for office as President of the United States 3 times now. He won one in 2016, lost in 2020. And many people believe his run in 2024 was fueled by the fact that he was facing many legal problems and could claim that this was electoral interference if it got in the way of his electoral run. He spent the last week or so crisscrossing the 7 swing states, hoping to convince voters of his closing argument, that Kamala Harris has broken the United States over the last 4 years, that ordinary people are struggling and he alone can fix it. If he does win, it will be an incredible turnaround. If he loses, he faces the prospect of federal court cases and perhaps even a jail sentence.
Well, a great deal of anticipation as we gear up to the first polls closing in just a few hours. Alan, Kimberly, thank you both. Let's now bring in our guests who will be here with us through the night. Arshad Hassan is a Democratic political strategist and founder and principal at Convey Communications. And James Davis is a Republican strategist and founder and president of Touchdown Technologies. So grateful to have you both here tonight for this consequential night in the United States. Arshad first, what is at stake tonight for America and for the rest of the world?
Tonight's the night. Tonight is a night that voters choose between 2 very different futures, 2 very different visions for this country. So much is at stake. These are candidates with highly contrasting views on the climate and what to do about dangerous changes in the climate, about our rights and freedoms and the role of government to take them away or not, including the right, whether, if, or when to start a family, and just our role in the world, in foreign policy. So much is at stake. I don't think that it is an exaggeration to say that our democracy and our freedoms are at stake.
So much at stake. James, no matter who wins, history will be made, right? What are you looking out for?
I'm going to start by agreeing with Arshad. Tonight is the night For many Americans, politics has become sport, and it's the Super Bowl. I mean, Kamala was able to skip the primary season and get stuck right in the big game. It might be a move Democrats regret later on. Voters are starting to look at the policies, and they're starting to say, you know, can we deal with this record inflation? Can we deal with the chaos at the border? What about the foreign policy blunders? Americans are really unsatisfied, and they want to make a move. Kamala is trying to run as though she's not the incumbent here. She's trying to say, if you elect me, I'll fix all these things. Voters, I don't know that they're going to be fooled here. And so I'm going to look and see if the blue wall, Kamala's blue wall, starts to crumble. We'll also be looking at the swing states and key demographics. We're going to be looking at young men in particular, a demographic that Trump has done a lot to appeal to, who doesn't traditionally break Republican or get out and vote.
All right. It's all about the math tonight. James and Arshad, thank you both. All about the math. Let's go to our data war with Cyril Vanier and his big data team, who are going to be looking at the numbers for us throughout the night. What should we expect?
Foley, it is great to be with you tonight and with your guests. I'm going to make one prediction right off the bat. I think I can call this one pretty safely. We are in for a long night, maybe even days. The U.S. presidential election is unique. It can be confusing, very confusing. So Al Jazeera's results team will be walking you through all of it. And here's where we start. By now, of course, viewers will be familiar with these faces, the candidates. The Democrat is Vice President Kamala Harris, the first South Asian and black woman on a major party's presidential ticket. Her challenger really needs no introduction, Donald Trump, the first former president of the United States to be criminally convicted. He is the Republican presidential candidate. So what we want to do right now is familiarize you with the tools we're going to be using tonight. We're focused, of course, on the Electoral College, 538 votes representing all 50 U.S. states plus Washington, D.C. This is at 0 right now, but it is going to populate automatically. You'll see it at the same time that I see it. So to win, you need half of these plus 1. So if you do the math, that's 270 electoral votes. Remember that number because you will hear it all the time. 270, that is their ticket to the White House. As the night progresses, you'll be seeing this map filling up with either red or blue. So states going for Donald Trump in red, and blue states are those that go for Kamala Harris. We're calling this the state of the race. You'll see it a ton. Very important to understand from the outset, around 43 states in America have consistently voted either one way or the other in the past several elections. I know this is confusing right now, but all we want to get to you is the big picture. They vote either red or blue pretty consistently. These states here are reliably Republican. These will very likely go for Trump. And you have the same thing on the other side, the blue side. These are reliably blue. These are very likely to go blue for Kamala Harris. What does that mean? It means we're paying extra close attention to the ones that we cannot predict. The 7 swing states in yellow, where the race is very tight. Remember these 7 names: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, North Carolina, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Together, they account for 93 electoral votes. Those are the make or break votes that will likely decide the presidency. In the Great Lakes region right here, let's do some geography: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. In the South right here, Georgia, North Carolina. And in the Southwest, Nevada and Arizona. That's
Cyril,
what we have right now.
Right, those swing states, very, very unpredictable, as you say. But what do the polls say about them? And can we trust the polls?
It's a great question. It's a question everybody's asking. The short answer, and I'm going to expand on it, is that the polls have a Trump problem. So let's bring you over here. Over there will be the results wall. Over here is when we want to focus on something, and we'll keep those separate. Kamala Harris, in the national polls going into the election, is ahead by barely more than 1 percentage point. She's at 48, right? Donald Trump is polling at, wait for it, 46.8%. So this is all within the margin of polling error, which means the race is a dead heat. Now go back a few months, pay attention to the blue line. This is the ticket switch, this point here. That's where Joe Biden drops out, Kamala Harris steps in, and of course she immediately, as we know, gives the Democratic ticket a boost. That's what it looks like. Then her numbers steadily increase, and then this gap, it narrows. So Foley's question, can you trust these numbers? The short answer is not really. Here's why. Look at what the national polls predicted on Election Day in 2016 and then 2020. Trump was running, of course, both times. 4 years ago, Joe Biden had a more than 8-point lead, 8 points over Trump going into Election Day. In 2016, when Hillary Clinton was the Democratic candidate, she also had a clear lead in the polls. You see it here. Some pollsters predicted at the time she had a 90% chance of winning the election. Here's what actually happened. In 2020, it turned out to be a lot closer than predicted. That was Joe Biden's final score, pretty close to the polling. But look at Trump. That was further away from what the polling had predicted, right? Trump got almost 47% of the votes. That is far more than polls had predicted. In fact, the margin of the 2020 polling error was the highest in 4 decades for the national popular vote. What about 2016? Clinton got more votes than Trump, yes, but of course she lost the election, defying all predictions, defying all polls. Last thing, tonight at this wall and at that wall is going to be all about the electoral math. But I do want to tell you about the issues. Our guests were talking about that. So what are the issues? In 2024, here's how Harris and Trump stack up on the issues that matter to American voters. We're talking economy, number 1, immigration, number 2, and then lower down, you've got abortion and unity. Voters perceive Trump as stronger on the economy and immigration, 55 and 52% respectively. It's pretty clear. But they prefer Harris on these two, abortion and unity, keeping the country together, 55 and 41%. So, Foley, that's where we are right now. The reality is that polls, as I was saying, have a Trump problem because they have undercounted his support in 2016, in 2020. Of course, pollsters have adjusted their models. They're working on that. They don't want to get it wrong a third time, but they haven't yet proven that they know how to accurately count and predict the level of support for Donald Trump.
Indeed, and it'll be interesting to see whether they overcompensate for him this time around, right? We'll find out soon enough.
It's possible. They could overcorrect.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Cyril, for that.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.